Hello, my name is Sue Colway, and I work with the Department of Homeland Security E-Verify. This is going to be a very short webinar to discuss just a few E-Verify questions and concerns, and at the end I will also give you my contact information and additional resources for any questions that you may have going forward. As you know, a completed Form I-9 is needed to create an E-Verify case. The employee chooses which unexpired original documents from the lists of acceptable documents to present to you, the employer, for Section 2 of Form I-9. Just remember, a job must be offered by you and accepted by the employee before a Form I-9 can be completed. From there, the E-Verify process is pretty straightforward. Just as a quick review, once you log into E-Verify, you simply take the completed Form I-9 and enter the information from Section 1 and 2. This is creating the E-Verify case. That information is pinged against government records, and in seconds you will receive a result right on your screen. From here on out, I'm going to go over some of the questions or compliance issues we receive the most regarding E-Verify, and then wrap it up with some tips for you going forward. The first bullet point here: because you are enrolled in E-Verify, the employee must provide his or her Social Security number in Section 1. You cannot even create an E-Verify case without the Social Security number. On the computer fillable form, it states this when the helper text bubble is clicked. For the second bullet point, if the employee provides his or her email address in Section 1, then you will either enter it when creating the E-Verify case, or you will select No Email Address Provided. One or the other will need to be selected before continuing with the case. If you are an E-Verify employer, any List B document must contain a photo. I would suggest that when you provide Form I-9 and the lists of acceptable documents to the employee, let him or her know that because you are enrolled in E-Verify, if he or she wants to provide a List B identity document, it does need to have a photo. This may alleviate having to explain or provide different documents if they happen to give you a List B document without a photo, such as a voter registration card. If an employee presents a U.S. passport or passport card, permanent resident card, which is the Form I-766, or an employment authorization document, Form I-551, E-Verify's photo matching feature will be automatically enabled. Photo matching allows you to match the photo on the document the employee provided to the photo that DHS has on file for that employee, and it will pop up on the screen. This feature helps reduce document fraud, and employers must make a photocopy of these documents if presented to you. Just remember to compare the photo on your screen to the photocopied document, not the employee's face. Now I want to discuss some of the top questions and concerns that we receive here. First, what happens if I don't create an E-Verify case within the 3-day time frame? Well, E-Verify states that you must create an E-Verify case by the 3rd day of work for pay. Sometimes this isn't possible. Maybe your employee is a newly arrived immigrant, has applied for a Social Security number but hasn't yet received it. If this is the case, once you do receive the Social Security number, you can then create the E-Verify case, and you would just select this default option, awaiting Social Security number. Maybe you are doing an internal audit and found that an employee did not have a case created. If this happens, please become compliant as soon as possible and choose this option. Audit revealed the new hire was not run. Even if a case is created late, it's better than not at all, and you can provide your own reasons in an open text field box. The next question is, when may I create an E-Verify case for a new employee? Remember, an employee must first accept a job offer and the Form I-9 completely filled out before you can create a case. But you also can create an E-Verify case up to 90 days into the future, which may help alleviate backlog if you onboard many employees at once. For instance, say you hire an employee in May and he or she has accepted the job but cannot start until July 1. The Form I-9 and E-Verify case can be completed in May, and you would use the July 1 as the first day of employment. We do receive a lot of questions regarding tentative non-confirmations or TNCs. You may not get a TNC very often, but if and when an employee does receive a TNC, there are steps you and the employee must go through to resolve the data mismatch. The first issue we hear about is employers asking for additional documents if the employee receives a TNC. Actually, this is not allowed. Once an employee receives a TNC, you must go through the process to resolve it, and you cannot ask, nor can the employee voluntarily provide additional documents to bypass the TNC. It must be resolved. Another common question we get is if employers can suspend work or pay because of a TNC. You actually cannot take any adverse action against an employee, including terminating or suspending employment, withholding pay or training, until the TNC becomes a final non-confirmation. If this happens, then you may terminate the employee. Also, how soon must we contact an employee of a TNC? Well, the Memorandum of Understanding requires the employer to promptly notify an employee of a TNC. This means that the employer must notify the employee of the TNC in the shortest time that circumstances allow, as determined on a case-by-case basis. And finally, when taking action on a TNC, the employee has 8 federal government workdays to begin the process to resolve the TNC. This doesn't mean that it must be resolved in that time frame, just that the employee has to begin the process by either calling DHS or visiting an SSA field office, depending on the TNC. And this is stated right on the referral date confirmation that you'll give to the employee if he or she chooses to contest the TNC. Finally, there are many reasons that may cause an employee to receive a TNC, and it doesn't necessarily mean he or she is not authorized to work. Some of these include Social Security number not matching, or citizenship or immigration status change is not reported. Maybe a lawful permanent resident has become a U.S. citizen and did not update that information with the government. Or maybe the employee got married or divorced and didn't update a name change with SSA. Or even data entry errors made by the E-Verify user can cause a TNC. That's why we really encourage you to take your time and double check information entered to be sure that you don't cause a TNC for the employee. Finally, regarding mandatory E-Verify. These states listed here have passed legislation requiring all or most employers to use E-Verify, and many other states require some sort of E-Verify use. We don't comment on state law to the public. We want to be helpful, but we also don't want to misrepresent or misinterpret state law. We recommend you check with your own state officials or legislative office regarding the requirements and information about your state's E-Verify regulations. And finally, regarding mandatory E-Verify, even though there have been bills introduced to Congress, none have passed, and we continue to monitor this. Basically, we hear about possible mandatory E-Verify when you do. But we do continually encourage employers to use E-Verify to give them the best opportunity to confirm the work eligibility of their employees. Again, thank you for this opportunity to provide E-Verify information for you and help your company stay compliant with E-Verify regulations. Please feel free to email me at any time for questions or concerns you have, or you can also contact our customer support at this toll-free number. For more information and guidelines using E-Verify, you can also go to our public website. Thank you.